Here we go. We're about to do this again. I just got done watching The Flash, Armageddon. I watched all 5 parts of this big, epic event, I guess. This time around, they decided to do a big crossover at the beginning of season 8, and it spanned over 5 episodes. This is very different from the usual having the crossover be in the middle of the season for all of the shows, or maybe even the end of the season, but maybe scheduling, COVID, how everything was pushed back, the season did start later than usual. First of all, though, the biggest thing to come out of this has to be Barry wearing gold boots! I cannot believe that DC fandom, they took that time, that opportunity to talk about the Flash show. And instead of promoting Armageddon, instead of showing a trailer of everything that they did here, they only promoted the fact that the Flash has gold boots. Whoop-de-doo! Who gives a shit? Who gives a fuck? Who even noticed? In part 1, we see Desparo, whatever the fuck his name is. He's from the future. He's this dude that claims that his planet was destroyed, so he came to Earth to live. And when he came here, I think in 2031, he saw that Armageddon was created by none other than the Flash. The Flash turned evil, became a bad guy, and caused the end of the world. So he comes to this year, this time period, in order to kill Barry to stop the future, the apocalypse from happening. And Barry can't believe this. He's like, there's no way that I would ever turn evil. It would never happen. There's no way. Let me prove it to you. Let me show you, give me a week to show you that I'm a good guy and that I won't turn bad. And this guy gives him the week. This is where it started off with a huge fail. I feel like this premise was bad in so many ways. The fact that this guy, who apparently has all these powers, I mean, he can time travel, he can turn into a big giant CGI monster that looks like shit. I know it's a TV show, I know it's CW, but at this point, we've gotten spoiled, I will admit, with the Disney Plus Marvel superhero shows and how great those effects look. And I don't want to do a Marvel versus DC thing. That's not why I'm comparing it. I'm comparing it because it's superhero shows. On TV, they're all superhero shows, and so I feel like you either step your game up in the CGI department, or you just don't do it. You don't have this guy become a big giant CGI creature, and you just have him as a dude fighting Flash, and have him use powers, whatever you need to do in order to make it a fair fight. But him becoming a Red Hulk-like thing, just, it took me out of it. I could never be in the moment to actually feel like Barry is in danger because I'm just laughing over how horrible everything looks. And the idea that Barry's just going to go along with this guy and say, all right, hey, I need to prove to you that I'm a good guy? No. Barry should say, fuck you, dude. I know who I am. I'm a hero. I don't need to prove anything to you. In fact, I'm going to lock you up because to me, you're just another villain. So don't they have like a prison at Star Labs? Right? Isn't there villains and criminals and people locked up in their cages and the city doesn't even know about it? Which I think needs to come out or needs to be addressed at some point. So why don't they just lock this dude up or find a way to defeat him instead of just trying to prove it to him or trying to do this and that? But also, the idea that Barry hears that he turns bad in the future, and he's in denial, he's in disbelief. And everyone else on the team is also in denial. Iris, just everyone. And I must have been the only person that sat there and said, well, what about Savitar? Does anyone remember season 3? Anyone? Savitar was a big, giant, Megatron-looking dude who I crapped on that. I thought it was bad. Not just the effects, but them doing that. Just dumb. But we come to find out in season 3 that Savitar was Barry Allen from an alternate timeline, an alternate future, where that Barry was wronged or he felt wronged by his team, he felt alone, and he turned evil, and he turned into Savitar. So why are we not addressing this? Why are we not bringing this up? Is the showrunner dumb and dense, and they didn't do their homework? Because all you have to do is just watch the whole series, especially if you're going to be creatively behind all of this. How do you, like, I instantly remember that. I instantly thought, okay, even if you want to have Barry say this is impossible, at least have Iris, or at least have somebody, Joe, anybody, say, well, Barry, there was Savitar, maybe this is possible. And so that you have the doubt there, they drop the ball big time because they think their fans are idiots. And so certain events are going bad, and the Flash is looking like he's doing things that he doesn't remember. He blacks out, whatever. So he goes to the Hall of Justice, and he calls upon the team, which there's like no team left. Martian Manhunter, Supergirl, I think they claim that they were off-world. How convenient. Where the hell is Superman? Green Arrow, we know, is dead. We saw Oliver Queen's shrine for the Green Arrow. Only Black Lightning showed up, which, it was cool, don't get me wrong. It was great to see Black Lightning, especially because I stopped watching the show, so I don't really know how that ended. I love the fact that Barry said, hey, we need to enact injustice. Like, they used the name Injustice. It's apparently a contingency plan. If one of the heroes goes bad or whatever, then the group has to enact injustice, which means they have to take their powers away from them. And so Barry's asking Black Lightning to take away his Speed Force, which, how many times do we have Barry losing the Speed Force or losing his powers? We just went through that in season 7. How many times? But okay, no. Injustice, this makes sense. Speaking of old characters coming back for this crossover, you had Ray Palmer show up, Brandon Routh. That was great. I loved how he was there. Him coming in to live with Barry and Iris, of course, messing up their trying to get pregnant situation, I guess. I just liked having Brandon Routh there. I wish we saw more of him. I don't think we saw him at all after, what, episode 2, or was it? Yeah. Like, where'd he go? Maybe I missed it. I don't know. After unsuccessfully being able to take away his powers, Barry realizes that, well, maybe if I go to 2031, and if I see what Desperado, whatever, whatever he's talking about, I can figure out what's going on. So when he goes there, we see that a flashpoint has occurred. A reverse flashpoint. And so we find out that it's, in fact, Ebert Thawne, Reverse Flash, has created a reverse flashpoint, and he's changed the timeline. And I failed to mention that we found out that Joe West was killed. And I was pissed. Especially because I, for years, have been saying, if they kill Joe West, fuck this show. Because Joe West was one of my favorite characters, as far as being the father figure, as far as being the moral compass of the group. So I always thought that character should not die. And then, not only did I think that they killed him, but the way that they did it, he pretty much died off screen. And it already supposedly happened, and only Barry wasn't aware of it. It was a reveal, sure, it was a shock moment, but my reaction wasn't, oh no. My reaction wasn't, oh, I'm sad. My reaction was, fuck you, show, which is what I literally said out loud. Fuck you guys. Apparently, he even went further back, and I think he said he killed Barry when he was a kid, and then he went and met Iris and had her fall in love with him, and did all of these things to make himself the hero. And Barry says something like, oh, you wore my face in order to make me look like I turned bad, which I'm still trying to figure that out. Like, wait, what? What do you mean he wore his face? Flash can do that? Or Reverse Flash can do that? They can change their face? Maybe if you said that, oh, Reverse Flash just wore a red costume and did all of this stuff, okay, fine. But they had to show you Barry's face in the previous episode to make it look like he's really turning bad. It's all convoluted. It's all a mess. But I did like that Reverse Flash was back. All of these seasons, they've had these various villains that I thought were lame and not nearly as impactful, not nearly as good as Reverse Flash from season 1 was. And so bringing him back was great. In general, I thought, cool, let's go along with this. I'll never understand why Ebert still looks like Harrison Wells. Like, I know it's something with the actor. They just would rather use the actor of Harrison Wells to do it instead of bringing back the other actor. Still think it's weird, especially because they had that other actor in Legends of Tomorrow as Reverse Flash, so it's just doesn't make any goddamn sense. But all right, fine. And you see that Eobard is engaged to marry Iris, so I'm sitting there thinking, has Reverse Flash been having sex with Iris for years in this timeline? It's like, I know they didn't really get into it. You didn't even see them kiss. They just like hugged. But it was like the tamest version of this. But if you really wanted to go evil and dark, you would have had him like make out with her in front of Barry. You would have had a scene where he takes her to the bedroom and he has this creepy smile on his face because he's about to have sex with Barry's wife. I'm trying to figure out, I know that Flashpoint can change characters' personalities, dynamics, but in this universe, did I have this right? Is Batwoman now the sister of Iris? Is that what they were saying? I've stopped watching Batwoman. I don't know what's going on with season 2, like, at all. But I was completely confused. Now, maybe that was just for the Flashpoint, and in the real timeline, they're not related. But I just was like, why? Why are we having them be sisters? Why are you having them have their conversations? It felt like a forced way to get the Batwoman actress on the crossover. It's like you guys couldn't have thought of a better thing to do with her. Also, Alex Danvers was there because Supergirl ended, so I guess you gotta have her do something, because why not? And if you want to talk about forced stuff, they had, I know this was a different timeline, but you had Killer Frost and that random douchebag looking dude who they teased them having a romance in the last season. I guess here they were married, and so you know that that's going to come back in the main timeline where they're going to have their constant romantic moments that I couldn't give a fuck less about. Wow. Just wow. That's what we needed. We needed a dumb love story for Killer Frost. Speaking of dumb love stories, Chester and Allegra. These are two of the newer characters that I don't dislike either of them. I don't. I like Chester just fine. He's filling the Cisco role, and sure, he doesn't have the history, but he's there. It's nice to have a black dude in the team. It's just the two of them falling in love, I couldn't care less. I couldn't. Just was like, why? Is it just because they're a guy and a girl, and so they just have to pair them up? Everyone has to be paired up in the group. It came out of nowhere. And not just that, but because this is a alternate timeline, you had this whole story of, oh yeah, we hooked up 10 years ago, and then Allegra tells Alex that, oh, Chester walked off the next morning and made me feel stupid. And then Alex goes to Chester and says, what the hell did you do that to her 10 years ago? And he says, well, actually, I went to go get breakfast, and I came back, and she left. And Alex then goes back to Allegra, like, this is ridiculous. Why are we dealing with all this bullshit when we should be dealing with fucking Barry Allen's whole life being turned upside down? This is all high school soap opera drama bullshit that we're wasting precious time for. 5 parts, 5 episodes, and it felt like nothing substantial happened because it was all with filler. And so the end of that is Allegra saw that Chester went to go get breakfast. She's been dumped with every relationship she's been in, so she was afraid it would happen again. So she walked out. She wanted to avoid getting her heart broken. And so, what? And then when all hell breaks loose, you have a moment where a character says, "Oh, guys, the world's about to end. So if you want to say something now, say it." Of course. And then the two of them look at each other. And then she ends up saying she loves him, and he says, "I love you too." And then they kiss. Huh? Who cares about? Fuck. All right. So Damien Dark was there. He's alive instead of Nora. And I really like the actor who plays Damien Dark, Neil McDonough. I just was glad they brought him back. This is what I'm talking about as far as bringing back past characters in any which way you can. And you saw that he was still evil, but Barry was able to get him to help him by saying that, hey, this is a different timeline where your daughter's dead. In the real timeline, she's alive. So if you help me, we can bring her back. And so only for his daughter, he does it. I like that that was his sole reason for turning good, for example. I'm not necessarily convinced that he would be as nice to everyone the way that he was, especially in part 5. Even the moment when Team Flash was fighting Damien Dark, I was feeling bad for Damien Dark because he was out there on the streets helping Barry. And then Killer Frost, the other Adam dude, and everybody started attacking him. And I'm like, no, you guys are wrong here. You guys suck, heroes. So Barry fixes the timeline. He comes back. This is where we get the start of part 5, where we just left off, where Barry sees that Joe is alive now. Thank God they didn't stick with that. I thought that was real for a second. But thankfully, Joe West is back. You see that Reverse Flash is here, but he's phasing out. He's going to die because the timeline, whatever the fuck. And so he goes to Barry. Well, actually, he goes to the police station, causes chaos to get Barry's attention. He could have just gone to Star Labs. Doesn't he know where that is? Just a lot of this writing is all over the place. Just go to Star Labs and ask for this dude's help. But that's what he does. He asks for Barry's help. He wants him to keep himself alive. And so they lock him up, and then they decide to discuss it. They say, we're going to decide as a group on whether or not we're going to let this guy die. And I'm hitting my head. Reverse Flash, you need to discuss whether he should die? This is a dude that killed Barry's mother, that put his father in prison for it, that has killed so many people. Thawne says, when you save me, I'm going to go and continue what I always do and try to kill you. I did like that we finally found out why Reverse Flash hates Barry. I didn't realize that in 8 seasons we never addressed why. But I guess we never talked about what it was. And apparently Reverse Flash felt like the real Flash just showed up one day, started saving people, started doing things that Reverse Flash felt like he should have done or been doing. And he felt cheated. He felt one-upped. So that's how we got that started. And I like that moment, maybe. But everything else of like, we need to talk about this, guys. We need to talk about whether or not this dude should die. And it's not even like, because Despero shows up and says, let him die. It's the only way to make sure he dies. And it's not even like anyone said, go in there and snap his neck. Go in there and shoot him in the face. Go in there and stab him in the heart. No, they just said, don't do anything. Just let him die naturally. He was the one that messed with the time. He was the one that messed with the Speed Force. And they even said the Speed Force was punishing him. Where were the time demons that used to show up if you tried to go back in time and they would show up to take you out? They were the ones that killed Zoom, right? In any event, though, you have Joe West have this angry talk with Barry and Iris and saying, how dare you let this guy die? And I just am like, it's the first and only time I've ever disagreed with Joe West. I'm sitting there like, what are you talking about? What is anybody talking about? Let this fucker die. It doesn't make them killers. It doesn't make them inhuman. They don't have to save this guy. It's like Batman and Batman Begins. I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you either. Woo, like I don't get why the show is trying to make Barry and Iris feel like bad people because they thought about maybe letting him die. It was ridiculous. It was dumb, at least in my opinion. So Despero mind controls Mia Queen. Oh, yes. Remember Mia Queen, Oliver and Felicity's daughter? Mia Queen, I guess, just came from the future. Did they even explain how she came from the future? Like, how did she time travel? Maybe they've explained it in the past and I'm just not remembering, but she just shows up and she claims that she's looking for her brother. And they showed footage of her with the Black Canaries and her brother got kidnapped and she's been looking for him for 2 years. And I'm like, what is this? How did the Arrow finale happen? Did this happen in the Arrow finale? If it did, then hey, I just don't remember. Or maybe this was that pilot, that failed pilot that they were going to do of the Canaries and Mia. But I don't know, whatever this is, I guess she has her own plot that she's doing. Because she's there, Despero decides to mind control her to help him stop them. And I just thought, okay, so Despero can mind control people? Well, why doesn't he just mind control the group or Barry and just have them let Thawne die? You know, he only mind controls her? And why her? Why wouldn't he mind control Joe to stop Joe from having that conversation with them and convincing them to do something about Thawne? It's just, none of this makes any sense at all. This is just an excuse to have Mia fight the rest of the team while Despero is having, like I said, that horrible CGI fight with Flash. Flash did what Black Lightning was trying to do to him, where he electrocutes Thawne. He takes away Thawne's speed powers. And I like how, I did like the moment where Thawne said, what the fuck? You took away my speed. That was my life. You basically took away my life. Like, you should have just let me die. Because this is a worse fate. Apparently, they have put him away in prison. So, alright. I'm sure we'll see him again. That's probably really why they didn't let him fade away. Is because they wanted the option to bring back Thawne whenever they wanted. And I'm okay with that at the end of the day. Because, like I said, he's the best Flash villain. Mia saw Damien Dark and she went to go kill him. I like that she at least addressed. This is a rare thing for the CW shows and the continuity of it, where Mia attacked or put the knife up to Damien and said, I know that you killed Laurel Lance. I should kill you right now. She doesn't do it, but I like the acknowledgement of it. And for some reason, Damien's still there. He has a nice conversation with Barry, a nice conversation with Joe West, parent to parent. He gives him the time gem or whatever the hell that was. And then you had a nice moment where Damien sort of goes into this weird blue world. He sees Nora, and they have a quick moment before, I guess, he leaves, or does she just, maybe he stays there, and Nora goes back? And this is weird, too, because all of this history of Damien dying for Nora, like, that happened on Legends of Tomorrow. So how many Flash fans, like, if you only watch Flash, do you not know what the hell is going on with this? But I did, at least. I wish we saw Ray back with Nora. Like, Ray should have been there to console Nora. That was kind of weird. And also, speaking of weird, the team were at this, like, nightclub or bar, but nobody else was there. It was completely empty besides them. I'm like, what's going on here? They probably shot this with COVID and all. They didn't even have extras and background people. I mean, I guess I get it, but it looked very awkward. The last thing that we see is the police station, and they do this Shining-like ending where they do a close-up into the photo of the police, and in the background appears Iris and Barry's kids, Nora and Bart. And so I guess that's going to play into, maybe they effed up the past. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, this was a fail. This was a fail. There was some cool stuff in it. There was some cool moments in it. But overall, it was very convoluted. The plot and premise itself didn't make sense. It made a lot of characters look dumb. Constantly throughout this whole thing, I kept asking out loud, what are you doing, main characters? And I don't want to be frustrated with the main characters. I don't want to be frustrated not knowing why people are doing what they're doing or not thinking story-wise any of it makes sense. How much longer? This is season 8. How much longer should I keep watching this show with the hopes that it's going to get back to the level that season 1 and 2 were? I had the same thing with Arrow. I stuck with it for the 8 seasons before it ended, and it never really got better. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of the Flash 5-part Armageddon event? Did you like it more than I did? Am I being too negative, or do you agree that, man, this sucks? Did you not even watch this? Maybe you're just listening to me rant, but you're like, I stopped watching this show in like season 4. Which if you did, you're smarter than me. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit that notification bell for more videos. Later!
Oh yeah!